The Huskies, after a 3-0 start with three pretty easy wins, finally have a big test this weekend. UConn BYU coming up on Saturday. Welcome to episode 143 of How About the Huskies. As always, I'm your host, Connor, joined by Matt and Andrew. And as I mentioned in the open, the Huskies did start 3-0, but they do have the big game coming up against number 7 BYU tomorrow. By the time you guys are listening to this, I think I'm dropping it on Friday. I'm excited because obviously we've seen the team play, I guess technically 5 games, and one was against Michigan State, so you could say it's a big game. It's exhibition, doesn't count for anything. This is the real deal. This is a team facing another team that's trying to compete for a national championship, which, as many teams say that they're doing that, there's really only a handful that really can accomplish that deal. I just want to hear your guys' thoughts about this game, how excited you guys are going in, because I know I'm really hyped about it because we get to see one AJ DeBanza, who's one of the top prospects in the country. I'm curious to see how we contain him, and just I want to see how our guys fare against some real competition.
It's very exciting, and I'm very excited. I feel like this is the first real game of the season. You mentioned those preseason games where those don't necessarily count. I feel like these past three games kind of felt a little bit more like that. You knew you were going to win those. They're not really like you're not learning anything. I don't think from those games that's going to be that substantial to your season. But I mean, coming into this one against a top 10 opponent, you have to show everything you have, and you have to be the team that you're supposed to be throughout the rest of this season. And I mean, even last year, BYU were no slouches. They did make the Sweet 16, but now they added the top freshman in the country. So they're going to be even better, and they're going to be hungrier, and they're going to be looking to beat you.
When this game first dropped, we'd heard the rumors for a long time and then it became official. And I don't know about you guys, but I did not think that we'd be playing the 7 ranked team in the country in this game. I was like, cool, Alex Caravan homecoming game. We're playing in Boston again. Like, we had great success there last time we were there. I did not think that this game would be 3 versus 7 in the high stakes that it is. So I'm really excited now. We're obviously going to jump more in depth about the team after our opening statements. But I am really excited for this game, and that is going to be our first test of the year, and technically a neutral site, but we all know it's not going to be neutral.
Yeah, I am curious what the crowd's look like. As you mentioned, it is AJ's homecoming as well. He's going to have a bunch of supporters there, I'm sure, but still nowhere near the number of UConn fans that are going to be in that building. And this isn't a season-defining game, but in a way, it partially can be because if you can pick up a win like this on your resume this early in the season, that's going to stick. Because say UConn wins this game, BYU, they may not stay a top 10 team all year, but they're going to be highly ranked, highly seeded in the tournament. That's a win that's going to benefit you on Selection Sunday. It's crazy that Selection Sunday is like 5 months away or something like that. And it's every game counts, especially against a big team like this. But yeah, I mean, kind of just wrapping up my thoughts here. I'm just really excited for this game, excited to break it down because there's a lot to talk about, a lot of maybe debates slash arguments, who's going to guard who, stuff like that. I'll just start breaking down their team as a whole. They're really, and this could come back to bite us for me saying this. I feel like they're just like a three-headed monster and not too much else outside of it. We know AJ DeBanza, who's averaging 18.7 points, 7 rebounds. Richie Saunders is back for another year. He's averaging 20 and 7. And then Rob Wright, who we saw last year when Baylor came to Gamble, he's their point guard. He's averaging 18 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Outside of that, not too much. I mean, you have Kennard Davis, who started the first 2 games, sat the last game with Achilles soreness. He should be good to go from what I've seen. They have Keba Keita, who looked good in that Villanova opener, but I mean, he's just a physical big man. It shouldn't be too much of a struggle for us. And then they have guys like Dawson Baker, who's in his 6th year in college basketball, guys like that. They're not the deepest, but yeah.
Yeah, I did a good amount of research for this game, as we always do for these big time games. And one thing that I kind of noticed that was weird was that I'm looking at my stat sheet here. We have 3 guys on BYU that average more points than the person that's going to be guarding them, and one is by 10 and one is by 8, but we're leading them in nearly every team category, and not by a small margin. Our points per game is 8 higher, our field goal percentage 6.9% higher, 5.5 more assists, 2.7 more blocks, and 3.5 more steals. So it's not like we're just narrowly beating them out in every category. We've got every category by a good amount, yet their top three average a good amount more points than we. And I've never been a guy to just look at stats, but I feel like in a game of this magnitude this early in the season, it's hard not to because they've played Villanova, who they played pretty well. They're probably going to be middle of the pack in the Big East. And then they crushed Stonehill, which is if you can't do that, you're having a problem. And then, sorry, Stonehill. But then they had a weird game the other night against Delaware where they kind of were down for a while and ended up coming back and winning pretty handily. So I feel like it's going to be a weird game to start out. It's definitely going to be kind of a feel your way through in the first half, but I feel like my general statement is that we should be able to take care of them because of our depth. That's where we really kill them is our depth. They have three fantastic players in Rob Wright, AJ DeBonsta, and Richie Sanders, and even Keba Kaida on the post is going to be a tough task for Terrace Reed, but I think overall we are the better team than them.
And I think this is a great time to play them because I'm not sure that they have peaked yet. They have a fantastic team, but I mean their top guy, you feel like AJ DeBonsa isn't leading them in any of the major statistical categories. He sits behind Saunders in almost everything, and then he's shooting 28% from three. So I think that you kind of you're lucky to get them now because I feel like if Debonsa can get going later on in the season, like as it progresses, then I think that there'll be a little bit more of a problem. But I think that if you can do a good job containing Wright and Saunders, then you just got to kind of let AJ beat you. And I don't know if he's at that level yet. I don't know if he's as prepared for the college game yet. So. We talk about this three-headed monster. You kind of just have to hope that you can contain it to a two-headed monster or even a one-headed monster in this game.
Yeah, and the best way to do that is you have to try to take away what each of those three players is best at. For Saunders, it's probably the perimeter. You don't want him hitting threes. I think he hit 4 or 5, maybe even more in that game against Delaware because like they went off in the second half. Rob Wright's a smaller guard, but he's someone that likes to go downhill, shoot mid-range, kind of be shifty, finish inside. So if you can try to limit that, having a guy like Terrace and when Eric Robb is in there down low is going to help maybe limit his looks at the rim, and AJ DeBanza try to limit him playing basketball because I feel like that's his biggest talent out there. But yeah, I feel like I agree, you gotta make it if all three of those guys, I mean, Saunders averages 20, DeBanza 18, Wright 18. If all three of those guys are at those averages, this is not going to be a fun night. I feel like for UConn, you're going to have to take one of them out of the game, and I feel like as crazy as it may be. I feel like the most likely candidate could be DeBanza, an inexperienced freshman in his first big game. I'm not saying he'd be terrible, but I could see him putting up like 11 points, still get like 9 rebounds, 5 assists, stuff like that. But I feel like it's going to be really interesting to see what we do with him. And I guess I'll kind of segue this into the question. We know what we have, like defensively. Who is starting the game's ass with AJ DeBanza, and what is the formula for success of limiting this 6'9" guard that can do everything?
I've been waiting to talk about these defensive schemes because I've done a lot of thinking about it. And I think this is going to be a game where we see someone like, unfortunately, as much as I love him, someone like a solo ball probably gets filtered out. I'm not saying he's not going to play. I'm not saying he's going to ride the bench, but he's going to probably, I would guess, get filtered out. And let me tell you why. Because I think that Jalen Stewart is going to guard AJ DeMassa. I think that this is a little different than the national championship game where we kind of just let Edie do his thing and focus on guarding like Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman run. I think it's a little different than that. I think that if you just let AJ do his thing, he's going to get other players involved. Edie didn't get many players involved in that national championship game. He kind of was just a turn and hook shot kind of guy. I don't care if he went 20 for 20, He was going to do that no matter what. Nobody can guard him. He's 7'5". But I think Jalen Stewart and Jaden Ross off the bench are going to guard DeBonsta because they're much quicker. And I like a guy like Alex Caravan who can just guard Richie Saunders in the corners and kind of float up top around the top of the key because Saunders isn't going to be the one really crashing the boards. DeBonsta is. And Jalen Stewart is a much more physical player on the defensive end, I feel like, than Alex Caravan. So that is my reasoning for Alex Caravan guarding Saunders right out of the gate. And then a combination of Ross and Jalen Stewart guarding DeBonsa. I actually think we're going to see a lot of Ross in this game, a lot more than you think. Probably 24, 25 minutes, in fact.
I agree with that, and I think I would not be surprised if he kind of slotted into the four. I just have a feeling that we're not going to see a lot of Eric Riba in this game. Keba Kaida, who is like their go-to big man, is only 6'8". He averages a block and a half a game, and I feel like Hurley's just going to kind of go with the troops in this one. I feel like you kind of have to trust your athletic wing defenders to kind of go out there and contain these guys. It's hard. It's hard guarding three guys who can all get 20 on you, but if you do go with a smaller lineup, you could start Reed, but then maybe at the 15, 14-minute mark, you could switch Caravan to center, and you could put Ross and Stewart. You have so many bodies and so many guys that you could throw around, and I believe that Hurley's going to kind of go with a less less than normal approach for him. I think we're just going to see a lot of athletic wings out there playing some tough defense, throwing some weird schemes at BYU, and kind of just Hurley being the pesky coach that he is.
Yeah, I agree with part of that. I do feel like we'll see a lot more Terrace Reed, like maybe like 30 minutes of Terrace in this one. I don't think we eliminate Ryba, as in like I don't think we see any much if any Caravan center minutes. But Ryba, I feel like I mean he's a very talented player, but he hasn't really proven he's ready for a game like this. Which maybe he can't because he's playing lesser competition these first three games. We haven't really seen it yet. Maybe he steps up his game when he plays against this top competition. But I mean, he's someone I also hate saying he looks maybe a step behind, but he's had some finishes that he should have finished that he didn't. He's had some plays where he's failed to get a rebound. It's just you can't I mean, it's still November and you have time to work stuff like that out, but in a game like this, and maybe the result may be you play instead of your usual he averages 16 minutes, he only plays 10, something like that. So I do feel like we'll see him. As for the whole Debanseth, I do agree it's going to be the Stewart slash Ross combo. I agree we're going to see a lot of Ross. I feel like the way he played, I know we didn't really recap that Columbia game, but it happened. Jaden Ross had three threes the first time he's done that in a game in his career. I feel like Hurley's going to play the hot hand in that regard and play a bunch of Jaden Ross because we don't need Ross to hit three threes in a game like this. It'd be nice, but he's in there, slash, him and Stewart are in there to guard AJ Debanseth. If they combine for even 10 points, I feel like that's a W based on the task that they have.
And Connor took exactly what I was going to say. I don't need Jaden Ross to score 10 points again this game. That's not going to be his job. Jalen Stewart can't play 40 minutes. I need Jaden Ross's job to get out there and do a fantastic job guarding either Devonster or Saunders when Caravan and Stewart are out. But now, kind of getting to the guard defensive scheme, I feel like you got to roll with your best defender on their best player. So I think Silas is going to guard Rob Wright. And I feel like the reasoning for what I just said about Solo Ball getting filtered out is that Kennard Davis Jr., who's supposedly going to play there too, he did not play against Delaware because of Achilles soreness. He's averaging 9 points a game through his first two. But I did read on, I forget what exact website, he did say he is targeting to play that. So we'll just pencil him in as he's going to play that. If he doesn't, it's not the end of the world. But I can see definitely Malachi Smith coming in for Solo Ball and getting put on Rob Wright because Silas Demery is the same height as Kennard Davis Jr. and Malachi Smith is the same height as Rob Wright. So I can see them both getting flipped kind of. And Silas is going to get gassed if he has to guard Rob Wright for the entire game because, like Connor said, he loves to go downhill. He loves to do the pull up mid range. He's a tough task to defend. We saw it against Baylor last year. As good as a defender as Hassan Diarra was for us last year, he had a hard time with him. So did Solo Ball. So I feel like in this game, I think a lot of Malachi Smith and Jaden Ross will be played, and I think we'll see less Ryba, less Ball, and more Malachi Smith and Jaden Ross.
You mentioned Wright last year with Baylor, he killed us. He had 22 points. He was their leading scorer. And the main reason I feel like the game was as close as it was, we only won by 4 points. So, Hurley gets to see him a second time here and kind of gets to game plan. Maybe the plan is let Rob go off since you know that you can beat them when he goes off and try and contain the other guys. But this team is definitely interesting. I feel like this game is one of the more interesting ones that we've covered over the past few seasons, and we've covered some big time games here and talked about a lot of different things. But for me, like this BYU one, just it feels a little different. It feels like one of the more talented teams that we've played, at least on the top. Usually, we play a lot of teams, Big East, they have like 4 or 5 guys who could start wherever, but um, I just, I'm very curious to see how we do it. We can talk about it all we want, but at the end of the day, I feel like the most interesting thing is going to be how we go about it and what actually happens.
Yeah, BYU this year has three probably top 40 or 50 players in the country. I'd say off the top of my head, I can't think of any of our other opponents that can say that. Maybe Florida, depending how you rank some of the guys like Boogie Flan. But this is definitely the most talented top of the roster we're going to see all year. And back to the point about Rob Wright, the beauty of having the depth we have is you can throw Silas at him, who's 6'5", and if he struggles or when he gets burnt out, you have Malachi Smith, who's smaller, but I mean, they're practically the same size, Rob Wright and Smith has proven to be a great perimeter defender. And with the mismatches, it goes both ways. I mean, Rob Wright, look what we have in our starting lineup with the guards of Silas and Solo. Rob Wright's a smaller guard who he's gonna have to guard one of them. Either you have him chasing Solo around the perimeter, or you have him guarding Silas one on one, who has the 4-inch advantage. So we may be thinking, how are we going to guard the Bansa? But they're probably thinking, who are we going to stick Rob Wright on? So there's a bunch of questions that really don't have answers until the game starts. But this is a segment we did last year for the bigger games. We're going to go back to matchups to watch in particular because I feel like there are definitely three you could pick here. So I assume we'll each have a crack at one. But what are your guys' matchup to watch for the game on Saturday?
I think I got to go with Silas and Rob Wright, but I have something highlighted on my sheet is that he has struggled all year with something. I know both you know what I'm talking about. He cannot send Rob Wright to the line. That cannot happen. He can't just get lazy. Silas is this. He can't just get lazy and foul Rob Wright off the ball or just foul him when he's going to the lane. He's got to play. I think you should honestly face guard him, but that's not my call. But I have that highlighted. He cannot foul Rob Wright because we don't want to have to go to the bench early. I think this is going to be a game where we really need Silas to show us who he is. So I think that matchup is going to end up being really the most important because I feel like like AJ is going to do his thing regardless. Saunders is probably going to shoot it from wherever, and a couple will probably go in. But I think this is the real big time matchup between the new transfer who hasn't really played a say meaningful game for the Huskies yet against one of the best scoring guards in the country.
I'm gonna roll with the Richie Saunders, and I feel like more than likely solo ball matchup. I feel like they're gonna have Rob at the one with like you mentioned Demurray on him. I feel like Richie and Solo it's gonna be tough because Saunders is 6'5", Solo obviously not the most competent defender on the team or in the country, but I mean he could put buckets up. I feel like this is a matchup where these guys can go back and forth for a few possessions, and they could each end up with 20 plus points, just kind of going back and forth. Like you said, Richie can hit it from, I mean, probably he's going to be shooting from the hash this game. They're going to be, looking for some quality looks for him, and um, Solo also can score from anywhere on the court. So I'm really curious to see, if they kind of go at that mismatch with Richie and Solo, or if we kind of slip Silas on them or what we're gonna do there. I just feel like that's kind of gonna be what we see the most, and I kind of want to see Solo win that matchup and be the junior presence that he is.
And I did say that there are like three matchups to choose from, but I'm actually gonna go outside the box to talk about center. I feel like we haven't touched upon that much. Terrace Reed versus Keba Keita. Terrace has looked awesome in his first two games back. I mean, they weren't even guarding him for some possessions down low. They're just giving the ball. We're not stopping this bear. We're just gonna let him lay it in, which happened a lot in the UMass Lowell game. Keita is someone who's smaller. He's listed at, I believe, 6'8", but he's a physical big who is someone that's known more for his defense than his offense. He's someone that can disrupt inside. It's not going to be as simple as dump it into Terrace, pump fake, dribble, layup, you're in. It's going to be more challenging than that. I'm curious to see how he adapts in his first real game as the big guy at UConn. He had Samson last year, even though for stretches he was the better center than Samson Johnson. This is his show now. This is the first real showing of it because unlike, I mean, we mentioned those preseason games don't count against BC and Michigan State. Well, guess what? Terrace Reed didn't have any preseason games. These past two games were his preseason games, so we haven't seen him against high major competition at all yet. So I'm really intrigued to see how he's going to do. And before we get to our players to watch and wrap up, I feel like we talked mostly like BYU in this. I want to talk more about UConn as the How About the Muskies podcast. What do you guys think has to be the biggest key on the offensive end for UConn to have success in this game? Whether it's a certain player or a certain like thing like 3-point shooting, or what do you guys? If UConn wins this game, what is the formula going to look like?
Scoring at will, getting buckets all night long. I feel like this is a team that you're going to have to outscore. I don't know if you're going to be able to stop them. They have too many talented scorers. I think that you're just going to kind of have to come out flamethrowing, get your best guys, their best looks. You're going to need Caravan to hit more threes or same with Solo. You're going to need Solo to shoot at a higher percentage. A lot of things do have to go right. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I think that we do have all of the talent in the world, but I think that you're going to have to score like 85 plus points to beat this BYU team on Saturday.
I'm going to kind of build off Matt here, and I absolutely do agree with that. But at the same time, I feel like we have to make them, and this is going to sound like stupid and obvious, but we have to make them play defense. Don't reward them with taking a bad shot. I think we have to share the ball at an elite level in this game, make them kind of run around, make these guys show that they can score, do more than just score the ball. We got three guys on this team averaging 18, 18, 20. That's fantastic. One guy can shoot the crap out of the three ball. But make these guys play defense. Don't just settle for stupid three pointers like we've seen this UConn offense do. I would love to see Dan Hurley run sets right out of the gate, take advantage of the shot clock, use the whole thing. And I kind of disagree with Matt about one thing. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game, honestly. I think it's going to be in the 70s because I think that both teams are going to struggle with one thing. I think UConn's going to use the shot clock and the clock itself very well, but I also think they're going to send BYU to the line a whole lot, which is going to slow this game down. So I think the biggest key on offense, building off what Matt said about scoring the ball, is sharing the ball at an elite level and using the clock to your advantage and not settling for terrible shots, but also be aggressive. Take the ball to the lane. If you're a Terrace Reed, put a good spin move on Caleb Keita. Make him foul you. Make the Bonsta foul you if you're Jalen Stewart. Take him one-on-one. I want to see us be aggressive and not settling for stupid shots and just win this game that way.
Yeah, I agree about the clock aspect. When I was watching there, I watched like the first half, or once I saw they were losing, I tuned into like the rest of the first half of that Delaware game, and then watched the first 5 or 6 minutes before they were hitting three after three and broke away. Because I don't need to see BYU win. I was just intrigued to see if the upset of a team who lost to a D2 earlier in the week could knock off the number 17 at home. But yeah, Delaware in that first half really controlled the pace. They were only up three at the break, 37-34, but a bunch of their possessions went to like the very end of the shot clock, which I mean worked poorly for probably half the time because they're hoisting up bad shots. But I mean, a bunch of those bad shots ended up going in. So you could tell BYU was a little phased by the pace of that game because they're a team like Rob Wright feasted in that game because no one could really stop him on Delaware driving to the rim. They're a team that likes to run, go fast. So I agree, limiting the tempo is going to be key. And I think this is a game where Solo Ball is going to have to show up from the perimeter because let me pull up his stats here because it has not been good from three. He's still averaging 18.3 points per game, but pulling up his game log, 3 for 10, 1 for 2, but that's an outlier game because we scored 110 points, and then 3 for 9 against Columbia from distance. So he's hitting three, but I mean the percentage is not where it should be or where it was last year. I think this is a game we're going to need him to shoot near 50% from deep, whether that's 4 for 8, 5 for 10, something like that. Because if you miss shots against this BYU team, they're down the floor before you can even blink. So not wasting possessions like that with bad shots and making your shots, I think is going to be really key.
It's pretty funny because last year Solo Ball was a 40 plus percent three-point shooter and he's shooting 33 this year. But it just feels way different. And I think you're definitely right about that. I think we do need that efficiency up. That's kind of what I was getting at before with Ball and Caravan. If Ball can shoot 5 of 9, I mean, this team's going to be unstoppable. So I definitely have to agree.
All right, I think now it's time for our players to watch section. Probably the most interesting players to watch we've had so far this year, even though some we've had like against Columbia was really fun. But who are your guys' player to watch against the BYU Cougars?
I want Silas DeMurray to kind of control the pace like you did mention. It would be awesome if we did not have to score 85 points to win this game. I do believe that's what it's going to be. And in that case, I mean, he could have a double-double with assists. He could maybe get close to a triple double. He's a bigger player, so I'm very curious to see what Silas does. I just think that this is a game for him to kind of, like you mentioned, control the pace, take over, and run this offense. But in the case where it is an 85, 90 plus point game, like he could be our stat leader in a good amount of categories. So I just feel like this is kind of his game to kind of come in as the point guard and kind of cement himself as, the top dog here. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, Silas definitely a good one. He was kind of on a sneaky triple double watch against Columbia. I think he had finished with like 9 rebounds, 6 assists, and 5 or 6 points. It might have been 10, 10, 10, but that's a triple double. And speaking of triple doubles, our guy Steph Castle had one last night. So just a quick shout out to our guy over there in San Antonio. But I'm gonna take someone who I really haven't talked about. I've talked about really everybody except this person. And I'm gonna go with Terrace Reed because I feel like this is a matchup differently than he's seen all year. Obviously, it is, but we talked about Keva Keita being the same height as him, but he is very physical. He's a very built, strong big man. He's only 6'8", but I'm gonna I'm gonna be curious to see how Terrace kind of handles things because he's not just gonna be able to go up and under him like a tall, skinny guy that he could. So I think I'm gonna take him because I'm also curious to see his in post passing. If he tries to make a move on Keita and draws somebody else to the ball and then makes a good pass to the point, I'm thinking that hopefully he does that. So I'm gonna stick with Terrace for my player to watch for this one.
It's easy to pick either Ross or Stewart just for the defensive aspect on Devanza, which is definitely warranted to talk about. But I'm going to go a guy off the bench in Malachi Smith because offensively, he's been much more than I think most of us expected from him this year. I mean, he's shooting 71% from three. If he keeps that up, we're talking about the best player in the world ever. But he won't keep that up. But he's really surprised us from the perimeter. And I feel like just defensively, the stretches he's in guarding Rob Wright are going to be crucial because not that he's a bad defender, I just praised him for his defense, but Rob Wright seems to be a guy that can get to the rim. We need Smith to stay in front of him. Don't commit the silly fouls that Silas commits, like Andrew mentioned earlier. His minutes are going to be crucial. I'm curious to see what they look like because, I mean, outside of Wright, they're a bigger team. How many minutes can you play Malachi Smith in this game? It's probably going to be similar to his 21 minutes per game. But yeah, I'm just curious to see what he can do in this one. And I feel like he'll hit a big shot or two. He won't score 15 points or anything, but he'll have his close to usual 8 points per game and make a big impact as he has every game this year. All right, you guys have any last thoughts on this big Boston matchup? I do not either. So that'll do it here for this preview. Our next episode is not going to be the recap of this. It's going to be an interview, and I'm not going to say who it is yet again in case it somehow doesn't happen, but we're recording it right after this, so it should happen. So you guys are going to love it. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will be recapping this game. That'll be after. That might come out. I think maybe the interview will come out Sunday. Maybe we'll do a recap that releases for Monday or something like that. But we will talk about this game, win or lose. And yeah, stay tuned for that interview coming up later this weekend. And thanks for watching.